Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining. My name is Brian Miller. I am the Educator Community Manager at Wonder Workshop, creators of Dash and Dot Robots. And I'm really excited to be joining you this month as we do our monthly webinars at Wonder Workshop, whether it's with myself as a host or presenting myself. We go through our monthly webinars through EdWeb. So we're really excited to be joining you today as we talk about top STEM ideas to keep your students engaged at the end of the school year. So school year's coming to a close, trying to figure out how to keep those excited children from causing any trouble those last couple of days while keeping you sane and wanting you to have some fun. So I've pulled out and brought in some of my favorite ways that you can start incorporating into your classroom. So not only are you going to learn a little bit about STEM and the importance of STEM in schools, you're also going to be learning about some of the activities that you can actually bring in that are really simple, that are really easy and practical for you to use, that apply perfectly across STEM subjects. So one of the things that we're really excited about at Wonder Workshop is supporting the EdWeb community of coding and robotics for K through 8. So we want you to join that community. And in this community, you're going to be able to have all sorts of community resources. You're going to be able to talk with like-minded educators, talk about different topics built around K through 8 coding and robotics and how you can integrate it into your schools. Also, the EdWeb webinars and recording and slides are located through here. So when you log into EdWeb, you're going to look for that icon on the right-hand side with those 3 green-haired children. And you're able to, from there, access the recordings and slides, any quizzes for continuing education certificates, our online discussion forum, and tons of free resources built around coding and robotics. But there are also tons of other communities as well that you can join with other great information and coding or other resources that you can use. So after you're done viewing this, you're automatically going to be emailed a continuing education certificate because you're viewing this live. You're actively participating with me today. However, if you want to share this with any of your colleagues, or if you want to pass this on to anyone else, they can go through, they can watch the webinar, and then they can take the quiz that we created for you to be able to gain your CE certificate. So in order to do that, you're going to need to take that CE quiz to get your CE certificate. And then you can join the community at www.edweb.net/code. And then you're going to click on that green-haired children icon. And then your activity is then recorded and you're able to receive that CE certificate after you've completed the webinar and the quiz. So a little bit about myself. I'm the Educator Community Manager at Wonder Workshop. As I said, we are the creators of Dash and Dot Robots. I actually keep them with me whenever I'm on screen. So we have Dash here and we have Dot here. So these are great tools for you to be using when you're in the classroom with your students learning about coding and robotics. And I've been in education for over 15 years now. I've worked in higher education. I've been a kindergarten teacher. I was a K through 5 computer teacher and director of educational technology at one of the largest private independent schools in the United States, which is located in South Florida, which is where I live. I actually live in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. So I do enjoy the beauty and sun all year round. I have had the opportunity to speak internationally and keynote and present at conferences and schools all throughout the world. And I love traveling throughout the world and talking to schools about the importance of coding, robotics, computer science, how toys can actually transform the classroom. And when I use the word toys, referring to Dash and Dot, I use that in a very endearing term. These are really tools for learning. So I have the pleasure of being able to talk about this all throughout the world, which really excites me. And I currently lead our educational outreach team at Wonder Workshop. So we work with schools and teaching them how to implement coding and robotics from K through 8. And we help schools that are trying to figure it out for the very first time. So if you're looking for any information on how to do that, you can reach out to me. So really excited, as I mentioned, to be talking about our top STEM ideas to keep your students engaged at the end of the school year. So one of the things that teachers always ask me is, as this school year comes to a close, how do we still follow along with curriculum, but make it more fun and engaging and take some of the stress off the teacher, but also incorporate some nature, being outside, obviously, because the weather is becoming a lot more beautiful, and being able to have some fun with those students. So real quick first, what is STEM? And this is something that, yes, I mean, we're educators. We all have the opportunity of teaching multiple subjects, but a lot of times there is still some confusion about what is STEM. So STEM is a curriculum based on the idea of educating students in 4 specific disciplines: science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Now, you notice that I'm focusing on STEM here, so just the science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. There's also STEAM, which people talk about, where we integrate the arts into this. And then we also have STREAM, which has popped up. So STREAM, which integrates science, technology, research, engineering, arts, and mathematics. So those are some additional adaptations that we've seen on this STEM movement by adding in those A's and those R's. But this is really an interdisciplinary approach to teaching, and it's applied. So students are really able to take what they're learning in their daily lives and apply this to what they're learning in school. And rather than teach the 4 disciplines and separate discrete subjects, STEM integrates them into a cohesive learning paradigm based on real-world experiences. So we often have students that are, or we're trying to find ways to teach this, but what we want to do is we want to build this and design this into our daily curriculum. We want this as something that students are able to experience all throughout the day, all throughout the school year, and based on real-world problems that they're trying to solve. It looks like Anna Marie jumped in here. Yeah, R can also be for robotics. There's a lot of different acronyms built around STEAM, STEM, STREAM. They keep popping up. But robotics is another one that I've heard. I'm a fan of research because it's not focusing on a specific skill set of robotics, because we can learn the robotics with engineering and mathematics as well. So that's why I kind of threw in research, which is what I've heard recently is a great one, because we do want our students to learn those research skills that go along with the areas of STEM. So some interesting statistics built around the why of STEM. So according to a report by the website stemconnector.org, by 2018, the projections estimate that there's going to be a need for 8.65 million workers in STEM-related jobs. The manufacturing sector faces an alarmingly large shortage of employees with necessary skills of nearly 600,000. So the field of cloud computing alone will have created 1.7 million jobs between 2011 and 2015, and which is according to this report. And now the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics project that by 2018, the bulk of STEM careers will be located in computing, which is 71%. So we know that computers are really changing the way that we live in our daily lives. So 71% of that in the STEM related fields will be built around computing, which is why computer science is so important for our children to learn, especially at a really young age. Traditional engineering will take up 16%, physical science will be 7%, life sciences will be 4%, and mathematics will be 2%. So when we talk about STEM in education, we're talking about how we're teaching this across different grade levels. So in elementary school, our primary focus for STEM is to focus on the introductory level of STEM courses, as well as awareness of STEM fields and jobs available. What this does is it provides standards-based, structured, inquiry-based, and real-world problem-solving through connections of all of our 4 STEM subjects that we're talking about today. The goal is to build students' interest into them wanting to pursue the courses in the next years of schooling, not because they have to, but because they want to. And this is really one of the things that I want to focus on today is elementary school STEM. The activities that you're going to be learning towards the later half of this will be focused around the K through 5, 6 age levels, although that's definitely applicable with older students as well for some of them. But we really want them to become excited and build an interest in joining STEM courses as they progress into middle school and high school. So really the foundation of that is to excite them as young of an age as possible, which we do starting in elementary school. So that's why it's so important. So placing an emphasis is also on bridging in-school and out-of-school STEM learning opportunities, which we see often with after-school clubs and organizations that are built around STEM. We see a lot of STEM types of groups that are club related. Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts of America have a huge STEM piece as a part of it as well. Robotics clubs or computer coding clubs are really popping up in schools as well. So these are all areas in elementary school that we're trying to build the level of interest for young students. Then they progress into middle school, and at this stage, the courses obviously become a little bit more rigorous and challenging. Students' awareness of STEM fields and occupations is still pursued, as well as the academic requirements of such fields. So we're teaching them what is required academically to go in and take on these STEM jobs. The students' exploration of STEM-related careers begins at this level, particularly for underrepresented populations. And underrepresented, I mean socioeconomic status, the demographics that they're located in, and also gender roles as well. So these are all areas that we try to incorporate into teaching STEM. We obviously want low socioeconomic students to have opportunities to participate in STEM-related activities. And one of the big pushes is still also in computer science, but also STEM in general, which is getting more girls involved in this area. And there's a lot of organizations and clubs that focus on girls in computer science, girls in STEM, girls in engineering. So we really focus on this, and we're seeing this focus start to drop down into even lower grades because we see the importance of this and how it is required for our youngest of students to begin to become exposed to this as well. And then we move into high school. So the program of study focuses on the application of the subjects in a challenging and rigorous manner. Courses and pathways are now available in STEM fields and occupations, as well as preparation for post-secondary education and employment. So we're getting these students prepared not only for pursuing their college careers, but also we know that a large majority of students will not be continuing with college and they will be entering into the job force. So we're preparing those students for those as well. And more emphasis is placed on bridging in-school and out-of-school STEM opportunities. So a really big piece for high school students is to be able to apply this and have an opportunity to try what it's like to work in these fields. So we see a lot of partnerships, we see a lot of work-study programs that are falling into STEM opportunities to give students the examples and the opportunities to learn what it's like to be in those roles, either when they graduate from high school or when they pursue their furthering education into college. So how do we get started with STEM? And I always get asked, what types of materials do I need to do STEM courses or activities? So really, it's up to you. You can be as creative as you want. I kind of pulled out some of the things that we're going to be using in some of the activities today, but really it's up to you what you want to incorporate. It could be something as simple as a balloon, or it could be something as crazy as old computer parts. So these are some of the materials that we can use for STEM. So balloons, recycled items that you find, whether it's recycling materials or it's old computer pieces, old electronic pieces, styrofoam, cookie cutters, straws, and then some things that you're going to need as well, which are notepads, drawing paper, rulers, scissors for the different iterations that they're going to be designing. We want them to go through the design process. We want them to think and figure out what it is that they're going to be building and record that progress all throughout. And a variety of drawing tools, which is an addition for students who wish to take notes, record data, and draw observations, which is a really big part. And I'll be going into a little bit of that when we go into how we actually go through and evaluate some of those STEM projects, which seem really hard to grade. So we're going to use some of these things that we have here in the STEM materials to help with that as well. So some things to consider, and one of those is age. Now, different grade levels determine the need for more or less supervision and more or less capability of handling STEM materials on their own. So you'll need more or less teacher intervention. So this means that you would have to determine, based on the grade level, how involved you need to be in this process, whether it's setting up supplies, making sure that the labs are ready to go, or are they old enough that they can do some of this on their own? So the space you choose for setting up a class science lab is a space you feel comfortable with your students, need to be self-directed for a few minutes or even an entire lesson. And then those older students, they're a little bit more capable and can help with opening up boxes or closing up boxes, cleaning up spills, measuring out the ingredients. So you're going to need to determine the space in your classroom that fits your desired lesson and the outcome that you're looking for. And some additional things to consider with space is how you're designing your classroom. So obviously classroom design plays a big part in this. So multiple curriculum space, which is what we see in a lot of elementary classrooms, is flexible seating and tables that provide opportunities for large group instruction or collaboration of smaller teams of students. So you're going to be able to manipulate and change. So classrooms and science technology labs that are combined, which we see a lot of, whether it's a computer class or a computer lab or a science lab, in order to foster experiential teaching and learning in environments that are both flexible and dynamic for students and teachers alike, multiple colorful spaces to separate learning environments visually differentiate those spaces. So when I was working as a K-5 computer teacher, I had different stations set up in my room that covered different things, and it was all based around themes. So I would have a orange section, I would have a blue section, I would have a yellow section, and in those colored sections, students knew what were happening in each one of those. It was really easy for my youngest students, especially in kindergarten, to be able to know what is happening at what spaces without having too much explanation. And then some project-based learning spaces should be smaller, closed-off rooms that can be opened to create a uniquely larger space that's perfect for project-based learning. Students can easily move furniture in these spaces for group or independent work. Students need options on how and where to work so they can choose their most efficient and comfortable workspaces. So we want these spaces to be a little bit more free in design. We want flexible furniture. We want the ability for students to pick and choose an area that they feel comfortable in and can take their work and work quietly. A few other things to take into consideration is lighting. And windows and ventilation, especially in STEM spaces when you're dealing with some chemicals that need a little bit of air to run through. So it's important for good lighting and being able to ventilate a room. And by being in a room with a window allows for ventilation, and it's also a great way to add science experiments too. So you can set up seed experiments and put them on your windowsill, and they can get the light that they need to be able to grow. But oftentimes we see some of these maker spaces, some of these STEM spaces are put into a central part of a school where a lot of the perimeter of our school is designed for our classrooms that are more utilized or utilized on a daily basis by a particular grade level. So having a room with windows is really important for ventilation, but also just to allow some beautiful sunlight in. It changes the entire experience of what your classroom's like. It feels less dungeon-like and a little bit more open and bright for those students. So I'm going to break down some activities that I've pulled out there, some of my favorites to do with students. They're really easy to implement. They require very few tools. Now, this presentation is available for you to download and use. So I do have lists of items that you'll need. You can take screenshots of them if you wish, or you could just save it for when you download the presentation, and you can use all of them. And as EdWeb is sharing, you can pull up those archives and the presentation at edweb.net/code. So first, I'm going to focus on some outdoor STEM activities, because what teacher at the end of the school year doesn't want to get their students out and enjoy the sun? Obviously, it's a little bit selfish, because I think we want to spend as much time outside as our students do. So the more opportunities that I found to be outside not only made me excited, but it also excited the students, because let's face it, they want to get outside too. And it makes learning a lot different to get out of those constrained classrooms where they're inside all day. You want to be that cool teacher that got to take the kids outside when all the other students are looking outside of the window and wishing that they were in your class. So something as simple as just changing your environment can really change the outcome. But what I focused on are some STEM activities that we can use outside with students. Now, the first one is a great one, talking about UV. So in this activity, the sun shelter, students will first design an animal out of pipe cleaners and UV sensitive beads. The beads appear white when not exposed to UV rays, but once they're exposed, they begin to change color. So you can buy these beads. They're just UV sensitive beads on Amazon for bags for extremely cheap. So students are challenged to use recyclables to create shelters for their sun-shy bead animals. Students will then test out their shelters by taking them outside and seeing if their animals remain white or change colors. The color change lets them know if their shelters work or if improvements are needed. So what a great way to teach students about UV protection, what they're going to be experiencing with their own skin when they're outside, and the power of ultraviolet light. So this is one of the neat activities that has been designed to do that. Now, some materials that you're going to need for this activity are really simple. So pipe cleaners, the UV sensitive beads, and as I mentioned, you can buy them on Amazon. I've seen them at other arts and crafts stores as well, really cheap for a bag full. A variety of recyclables. So you're giving your students an opportunity to look at what they have in their room in a pile that they can create what they want their shelter to look like. Construction paper is always a must in any teacher's classroom. So you're going to want to have that, some tapes and scissors, Sharpies, and then I love using googly eyes and glue to add a little bit of character to my animals as we're building them. And then they have to build the animal craft. So you're first going to start by building your pipe cleaner and pony bead animals, which is what they're called, pony beads. Students can make simple caterpillars or snakes by stringing beads onto a half of a pipe cleaner and roll the ends to hold them in place. Students can also make more intricate animals like horses or dogs or snails and lizards. You can personalize your animal by gluing some googly eyes on it, as I mentioned. The second one is sun prints, and this one's really easy and a lot of fun to use, super inexpensive as well. What you're going to do in this activity, your students are going to investigate how different objects and transparency of objects react to the sun. So students will design a piece of art using construction paper or sun art paper, which are really cheap and easy. So materials for this activity is you're going to need some materials to actually lay on the paper. Feathers, pipe cleaners. I love using Lego pieces and minifigs to design what I would have my actual printing to actually look like. So I have minifigures kind of all laid out. Cotton balls, things with different transparency, all sorts of different objects. And what your students are able to see is how sun passes through these objects and will burn it onto the paper. So we can see here that these were pieces that were laid out on this sun art paper, and they were creating constellations after they were reading this Dr. Seuss book. So additional stuff you'll need are the construction paper, and any construction paper works. I like to use dark construction paper. It gives a little bit better of a turnout. And for those of you teachers who have, like myself, many times created a bulletin board for your classroom and you decided to use dark colored construction paper, and a couple weeks in, it comes time to peel off whatever it is that you had on top of that construction paper, you saw the effects of what just light was doing to that construction paper, how it made it fade. It happens a lot faster when it's laying out in the sun. So construction paper works really well, especially if they're darker colors. Or you could go online and you can purchase solar paper, which is designed specifically for this, where when it interacts with the sun, it will fade a lot faster. And then trays are obviously needed because it makes it a lot easier to transport the things that the students have laid out on the paper. Don't glue anything down because you're going to be removing those items that you've laid down. So if using construction paper, like I mentioned, use dark ones like blue, black, or purple. And depending on how creative and inspired your students are feeling, this is a terrific open-ended design activity. Have students explore what different color papers would look like. Pick out neat pieces and add minifigures to see what would happen with the different holes and openings of the brick. So this is a really cool exploration activity for students to, once again, see what happens with the effects of the sun. I see some great things being shared inside of the chat room, asking what types of STEM curriculum there are out there, agreeing that it's really cool to use construction paper as solar paper, flexible seating. So that's great. Continue to share some of those resources with everyone in the chat room so they can learn from you as well as you're learning from me. I think that this is, mutually beneficial to have everyone in here who are experts in this area or looking to learn more or share some great practices that you've done in your classroom. Share those in the chat room. I want people to learn from everyone. Yeah, you can't believe that you can use stuff that you already have. Exactly. I tried to make this as simple as possible. And the beautiful thing about these STEM activities is you can come up with anything. So you can get really creative. Now, one that's really neat for us to prepare our students for that will be happening over the summer months before they get back to school. On August 21st, 2017, the United States is going to see our first solar eclipse in like 30 years. So, and it's going to be a full solar eclipse. So that means the sun or the moon will completely pass over the sun and it will be black. Now, the area that we're going to see this the best, where you're going to get about a full 2 minutes of complete darkness, is along this yellow line. And as you move further away from this yellow line, it's going to be less time that you see. However, it is still extremely dangerous for your students to be staring directly at a solar eclipse. It's not good for your eyes. Sunglasses aren't recommended. It's actually going to be brighter than what it normally is, and you can still hurt your retinas by being exposed to the sunlight if you're using it just on your bare eyes. So we can have our students, before the end of the school year, create really cool solar eclipse viewers that they can take with them, save, and then that way they're prepared for August 21st, 2017. So students use everyday items to build a solar eclipse viewer, and they use it to examine the sun's corona and storms from the sun, such as solar flares and coronal mass ejections, CMEs. For this activity, you're going to need some simple materials: 2 pieces of stiff white aluminum foil, colored construction paper tape or other strong tape, a hole puncher, paper towel or wrapping paper tubes, pencils, push pins, scissors, and white cardstock or construction paper. Now, this is one of the many, many ways to create solar eclipse viewers that you can build. There are tons of different ways out there. Simple steps. You would lay the cardboard tubes end to end to reach approximately 1 meter. You'll tape them together, and what you'll be building is a box and a tube that you're going to be able to look through, and through the pinhole that's on one end will project the solar eclipse view on the inside paper. So you're going to be able to see what is happening without staring directly at the sun. And you're going to be able to track and see the progress of the moon passing over the sun, which is a really cool experience. I've had the opportunity of seeing partial ones before, but nothing along these lines. So I'm actually going to be traveling to one of these points on the map to figure out and see where it is. Probably going to hit up Nashville probably to see this. Yeah, so Rhonda, you said you're old enough to recall the last one, which was quite some time ago, and we won't see another one again for almost another 20 years, and then we won't see one again after that for quite some time again. It's going to jump back to about 30 years or so. So this is going to be, for some people, the last one that they're going to be able to see in their lifetime. And then one of my favorite things, I love to eat food, and who doesn't love s'mores, especially over the summer. So one of those things is S'more Fun, which is creating a solar oven and learn how it traps the sun's energy to make the air inside the box hotter than the outside of the box. In other words, the solar oven is like a super greenhouse. So we're able to teach greenhouse effects by using some simple materials and bake s'mores for your students to enjoy. And it doesn't take long. It takes like 30 minutes. So what you're going to need is you're going to need some simple materials. Again, you're going to need a cardboard box. I've seen pizza boxes work really well with this as well, or shoe boxes. But the cardboard box with an attached lid, the lid should have flaps so that the box can be closed tightly. And the box should be at least 3 inches deep and big enough to set a pie tin inside. See a lot of people excited. Who doesn't love s'mores? You're going to need aluminum foil, plastic wrap, glue sticks, tape, a stick to prop it open. And you can see the stick on here. We have this propped open, and you can actually point it and the angle in which you want the sun to reflect on so it traps the heat inside. You can use a ruler, box cutters, with the teacher's help, of course, to make sure that everything's cut out and ready to go. So here's the directions for this. You're going to use a straight edge as a guide and cut 3-sided flap out of the top of the box, leaving at least 1-inch border around the 3 sides. And then from there, you're going to cover the inside of the flap with aluminum foil. You're going to spread a coat of glue from the glue stick onto the cardboard, first making the foil as smooth as possible, and line the inside of the box with aluminum foil, again, gluing it down and making it as smooth as possible. And that's a really big piece. You want to make it as smooth as possible so it transfers the heat evenly. If it's crinkled or it has some tears in it, it's not going to retain the heat as well, and it's not going to reflect as well either. You can also tape 2 layers of plastic wrap across the opening, and that way it's trapping in the heat inside. So it's allowing the sun to pass through the plastic wrap and going to bake inside of that. And the temperature will rise inside of that box, and it's going to become hotter than it is outside. So you can imagine the effects of what it is being in a car, for example. So imagine this is just a really big car. And not that I recommend putting any s'more material on your dashboard, but it is fully capable to be able to cook cookies or be able to fry an egg, depending on the heat during a hot day. in your car. So this is kind of the same idea where it's creating a greenhouse effect inside of here. And what you're able to teach your students is how greenhouse effects can allow plants to grow in environments that may not typically allow plants to grow, because it can create a warmer climate than what it is outside. So you're able to teach some really cool effects with this as well. Thanks, Michelle. I appreciate that. In less than half of your webinar time, you've wowed and amazed me. I appreciate that. Thanks. And it looks like Jill also did nachos in a solar oven. That's a great idea. I'm going to have to try that myself, actually. I'm a sweet person, but the nachos sound like a really fun idea with some shredded cheese. And who doesn't love nachos? What about tacos on a Tuesday like today? You can make your own tacos inside as well. So just some fun ways that we can do this. Yep, excuse to make pizza. So lots of fun things being shared. All right, so now some popular STEM activities. So I had to pull some of these out, and some people are going to agree with me on creating some of these items. Some are not, but nonetheless, these are all popular STEM activities that your students are obsessed with right now and wanting to learn more about. So I've pulled some of these out for you. The first one are fidget funds. So using a fidget spinner and creating a design challenge. So have your students spinners and what they're doing with them and how they work with the ball bearings. Shake my head. Yeah, I know some teachers are going to be regretting me ever talking about this, but we can make this actually a learning experience. What the students are able to do is they can develop a spinning technique, and they can draw it out on paper and figure out what they want it to look like. And then they can investigate the length of time their spinner stays spinning. So now they're able to track some data from the spinners that they're wasting their time with, right? You can find the average spin length, and then you can graph the spin times, and you can even compare and graph class data of all the spinners. So what a great way to bring ed right now to learn from. Then they can respond to critical thinking questions, looking at how human error can influence that data. So a misspin or tapping on something accidentally. These fidget spinners are designed for speed and for able to use them, you know, and work perfectly every time, but human interaction causes this. Yeah, so I can see fidget spinners are big in schools right now, and everyone's loving that. I took a picture real quick, a sidebar, and I posted it on my Instagram at EdTechNerd, of me locking up spinners with a padlock. So you know that just the regular master lock padlocks fit inside those ball bearing locations, and you can lock up your students' spinners. Even if you have like a breakout EDU box, you can lock them up as well. So just something that you can take a picture of if you jump on my Instagram. And then what you can also do is you can use the data and learn how to design their own spinner and make it more efficient. And one of my favorites is incorporating video into this, actually slowing down the video to see how the spinning works, which is really cool. So some easy ways to create your own spinners. The easiest one that I found, creating them out of Connect's engineering blocks. So just taking those Connect's pieces, building them together, and you can make a quick spinner. I was making spinners or fidget spinners 20 years ago before I even did the but it's a great way to build. You can use nuts and bolts, popsicle sticks. There's tons of ideas out there. But we know that this is a fad. We know that this is something that students are really enjoying to use. So let's teach the science behind this. Let's explain why this works the way that it does. Let's have them learn something from this obsession, this fad that's kind of going around. So we can really incorporate this and make it fun for students to learn from. All right, so another one that I love, and I actually have a couple of these to share with you. Some different slime activities. One of them is considered snot, I think, but it's still considered in the slime category. Students are obsessed with slime right now. If you walk into a Target, you walk into a store, you're going to find empty shelves where Elmer's glue once sat. So we know that students are really excited about different slime right now. But we're able to teach students about the effects of polymers while we're doing this. So they can learn how different chemical reactions create different types of reactions and create slime. So we can actually build this and make the science. And I was creating slime 25 years ago and learning about how to do this. So who doesn't love the hands-on activity of slime? So here's a simple recipe to do that. So in these activities, students will learn about polymers and non-Newtonian fluids. Students will make various types of slime and do side-by-side investigations comparing the properties of various polymers and non-Newtonian fluids. So the simple, easiest way to do it recipe is 2 bottles of Elmer's non-toxic washable glue, white for a total cup of 1, half a cup of water at room temperature, half a cup of liquid starch, and then I like throwing in occasionally glitter, who doesn't love glitter, and food coloring to change the colors of it. That's really simple. That's as down and dirty as you can get. It will create a decent type of slime for your students to start interacting. It's not as stretchy. It's a little bit more hard than most are. But there are other ones that you can make out there. I'm going to show you a really cool one that you can do next. So my favorite is fluffy slime. So using, again, the Elmer's washable glue, now we're also going to be adding in foam shaving cream. So adds the fluffiness of shaving cream to it. We're going to add in also baking soda, some food coloring, saline solution, and then you're going to need a bowl and measure the cup and tablespoon. So this creates a real fluffy type of slime. It's stretchable, but it's really soft to the touch. So you're going to measure 3/4 cup of shaving cream into a bowl. So a majority of what we're using is the shaving cream. And then we're going to add color. So we're going to use neon food coloring, but there are tons of different choices. You're going to add in half a cup of glue to the shaving cream and mix thoroughly, and half a tablespoon of baking soda. So you're going to start to see this form its whipping texture. It feels like a really thick Cool Whip. Yeah, someone mentioned borax in here as an option. Borax is a chemical that a lot of students have reactions to. So I try to stay away from borax slimes just because I have seen students break out from it as well. It creates almost like a burning of your hand. So you can actually receive like 1st and 2nd degree burns when using it. So it's a chemical that you have to be careful of, and it's kind of like a latex allergy. Some people are more susceptible to, the effects of borax than others are. So it's one that I try to stay away from in the classroom. Yeah, and it has been in the news lately. We've seen a lot of things pop up, but this is, something that I've seen over the years. It just became newsworthy because more people have social media to share it seems. So once you get your mixture thoroughly whipped, you can start pulling it with your hands, and then you can knead it for a few minutes and you can create fluffy slime. It's just such a really cool way to do a slime activity. It kind of changes it up a little bit. It's really soft. And then my third slime, of course, me wanting to eat food, and it's 6:30 at night Eastern Standard Time, so you can tell that I'm getting hungry now. Edible slime. So we can actually create slime that students can eat, which is a lot of fun. And it's really, really easy. It's only a couple things. So the main piece in this is Knox unflavored gelatin. You're going to need 3 packs of that. You're going to need corn syrup, water, and food coloring. And this is the one that's kind of more snot-based. It's very liquidy and runny, has a lot of bubbles in it, but it's fully editable. It doesn't taste the best. You could add some artificial flavoring if you want. I've seen people use like the Dasani or the Mio drops for flavoring that you would put inside of a bottle of water to add a little bit of flavor to it, and also some color. Works really well. But this is a really cool way to make it editable. So you mix half a cup of boiling water and 3 packets of Knox brand unflavored gelatin into a bowl. You mix the gelatin and water slowly with a fork, and then you add in that gelatin real slow, and then you let it sit for a couple minutes, and you can watch and see what happens. And in another bowl, you measure out half a cup of corn syrup and slowly add both those mixtures together until you get your snot-like consistency. And using a fork creates a lot of strands to make it look like it's really drippy and snotty. So what student doesn't love snot and what it looks like and what it sounds like? And the fact that you can eat it makes it even more fun. So another fun edible one that you can do in your classroom as a prize for your students. So being a coding and robotics person, I focus a lot on this area. This is what I speak about internationally, coding and robotics in schools. So I've pulled out 2. One of them uses my favorite friends, Dash and Dot, and the other one is an unplugged activity that you can use with your students. So this is one of my favorite ones that I do in workshops when I do my 3-hour workshops on Dash and Dot for schools. So this is called Robot Petting Zoo. And what you're able to do is it explains animals respond to different types of information that they take in via their senses. In this lesson, students will research physical and behavioral traits of an animal and program Dash to act out these traits based on stimuli in the environment. all the groups will present their findings to the class. So they're taking Dash, they're decorating him as their favorite animal, using whatever technique they want. You can use cardboard, you can use Legos, you can use pipe cleaners, you can use whatever it is that you want to design these. And then you're going to program Dash to mimic the behavior of the chosen animal based on stimuli in the environment. So this is where the programming side comes in. You're having your students manipulate how the animal would perhaps move. So example is, if I were to create Dash as a snake, I could have Dash kind of make his turns to be sort of S-shaped as he travels through his environment. And if he sees something in his way, he may decide to kind of scurry back a little bit and then again proceed forward with caution. So those are some things that you would be able to do. You would create Dash to look like the animal of your choice. I also like to throw in the sounds also, because we can record Dash and Dot in there as well, and have sound effects that we've created. Someone's asking, do I plan that in Blockly or Path? You would do that in Blockly or in Wonder. So those are the two apps that you would use for it. Path would just being able to draw your finger on the path, but I prefer to do it in Blockly and Wonder. It gives me a little bit more control inside of there. So this is a really fun way to teach animals, their environments, the senses that they experience, what differentiates them from other animals. And then we talk about an unplugged activity as well. So we have here one of my favorites. The font is a little small, so you can maximize your screen on this. This is called IfThen Kids. This is teaching students about if-then functions and statements. So the if-then statement is, if-then is what's called a conditional statement in programming. So we can teach students some of the vocabulary that goes along with what they would need to learn. The program queries if one condition exists, then it commands it to do something else or something. It can be as basic as true or false question, and answer it can prompt an action. So for example, if I clap my hands, then you clap your hands. So that's an if-then statement. That's a conditional. And for the rules, for every round, there's a programmer and everyone else is a computer. So you have the student that's the programmer in the front of the room, and everyone else gets to participate. The programmer stands in front of the computers and gives them his or her command. If I blank, then you blank. So for example, the programmer below gave the command, if I turn in a circle, then you turn in a circle. Then we can start to increase difficulty levels and make this more game-based for those students. The programmer would be, if I do this, then you do this. So that's level 1, which we went over. Level 2 is, if I do this, then you do that. So you can add a twist to the computer, should do something different than the programmer, but still start and stop when they do. So if I clap my hands, then you make a noise of a dog. And if I do, so that's again another, if I do this, then you do that. If I do this, then you do that, or else you do something else. And it kind of breaks it down into even more. And then you can start to add in some eliminations as well. So this is a really fun way to teach this skill set to and importance of conditional statements to young students, and gets them physically coding and brings some of the physical computing to this as well. So this is a really fun activity that students absolutely love. So to wrap a lot of this stuff up, it's really hard to evaluate STEM for a lot of people because they're so open-ended, and they come across as being difficult to grade. So some things to keep in mind when grading your students' STEM activities. 1, don't worry about grading everything. You may have a lot of items to grade, especially at the end of the school year. Sometimes it's okay to do an activity because it's fun. Don't feel the pressure of having to grade it, especially at the end of the school year. The second is, not everything needs to be traditionally graded. So STEM activities are definitely a non-traditional lesson. Don't feel the pressure of traditionally grading them. So perhaps have students snap a picture of their device and electronically send it to you, or on their device and electronically send it to you. You could have students keep a journal of their STEM projects, which is what I mentioned in materials earlier on, where they can record their progress that they found and share their findings. And then you can grade the journal holistically. Have students keep a journal of their STEM projects, which I mentioned. Have students sketch their STEM projects and record what they learned. So you can have them draw everything out and what they learned from that and record it. Or just let them create and be present in their learning and talk with them as they work. Number three, there's no failure in trying. So for me, with my STEM classes, I always had students pass. It wasn't ever a pass fail. And every student who tried received a passing grade. And that's really promoting the learning experiences. And because there's so many different outcomes around STEM projects, that it's impossible to have everything cookie cutter and turn out to be exactly the same. So create a check system and award point values to those checks. As long as a student experiments and tries, they still collect a passing grade. Not everything always works in STEM projects, but it's a learning process and how to celebrate and learn from that failure. And I see someone asked a question about rubrics, and I had it in my presentation. So rubrics for STEM challenges, things like teamwork, participation, creative thinking, and reflection are every bit as important parts of the learning as outcome of the project. Create a rubric accordingly to promote the outcomes you're looking for your students to take away from this activity. So these are just some simple ways to evaluate STEM projects. And if you're looking for rubrics, there's some great ones that are out there on Rubistar, RUBISTAR.com. Where people have shared rubrics that they have created. I'm going to post it in the chat. You can go on there and you can see some rubrics that people have created, and it's a free platform for teachers to share rubrics. It's a great one that I share with a lot of people. So if you do like the rubrics method, that's a great resource for it. So at this time, I'm happy to answer any questions. I didn't see many pop up in the in my Google Doc here. So you can also go on and feel free to ask any questions inside of the chat window. One thing that I do want to mention, being that I am from Dash and Dot Wonder Workshop, we do have right now an end of the school year special where you get free Dash and Dot Wonder Packs when you purchase educator packs through www.makewonder.com. And I see Lisa jumped on. Hi, Lisa.
Hi, Brian. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Hi, everyone. I'm Lisa Schmucky, the founder of EdWeb, and I just wanted to come on. This is such a great presentation. You're really good at following the chat, going through. So I was trying to collect questions for you, but you were pretty good at picking them all up. But somebody did say they had $100 left to spend, and so wanted to spend some money at Wonder Workshop. So
good.
That's great. So I think you did follow a lot of the comments here. This was so exciting. I'm sending this to my niece and nephew.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the stuff that I pulled out are things that can be done at home as well, or summer camps. So it doesn't necessarily have to just be for the classroom. There's a lot of, at-home projects that you can do with your own children and experiment before they actually have the opportunity to bring it into the classroom.
Mm-hmm. Very, very exciting. I think, I loved some of the comments you were making about the learning environments. That wasn't quite what I expected here, but I thought that was really cool about and we've done some other presentations on that. I know folks are really interested in those ideas, and how that can, change the dynamics of what are happening, right?
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. Environment plays such a large part of our daily lives, and especially in the classroom. So we always want to be thinking about what is the best learning environment for our students, and especially around when we're doing some of these lab hands-on based activities. Some environments work better than others, and every child learns differently. So that's why I'm very big on flexible learning and, a project-based design classroom that allows students to pick their spaces and really feel comfortable in their environment.
And one of the ideas too, because I know people really appreciated some of the ideas for how they can cheaply do some of these things. And one of the other suggestions we've heard, which I don't think you've messaged, is just, go to your district and find out where the storage area is.
Right.
And frequently, like if you're trying to do a maker space, you need work tables and things like that. Frequently, you can find things in storage that you can use. So just another one to try.
And custodial staff were my best friends.
Oh,
and,
yeah. Right.
If there was something that I was looking for, I would go to them and I would say, hey, is there any way that you can keep something aside? And even, the lunch workers, the cafeteria workers, if you're looking for boxes or containers of certain sizes, those were my best friends. Those are all people that we want to, reach out to if we need something, because they're just as invested in the lives of our students as well. So any way that they can pull stuff aside and save it for our classrooms, they're looking to do that. So definitely utilize those people in your building as well.
So there was a question about your thoughts on teaching Python or JavaScript to middle school students. And then somebody else posted right afterwards, JavaScript, you need to teach HTML and CSS too. So maybe you want to talk about, what kind of coding to teach at what level?
Yeah, so this is a really big piece that I'm focusing on right now at Wonder Workshop because we are working on some of those solutions. What we do see is it depends on the type of programming your school wants to offer. So in middle school, the typical programming language that I do see is JavaScript and Python, as they mentioned. Other schools that are focusing on graphical user interfaces and interactivity of sites is CSS and HTML. So the school really needs to determine what they want their students to walk away with during those grade levels. Now, for me personally, I think transitioning from a block-based programming language to a JavaScript programming language is a really nice transition. But that's just, my personal philosophy on how computer science and programming is. Others may feel differently. But like I mentioned, I do see a lot of schools focusing on that. The middle school grade levels are appropriate to start teaching JavaScript or Python. They have the foundational levels, and a lot of our students are already walking away with the foundations of computer science, and then they're trying to apply them into a language. So teaching them to these middle school students, we want to start slow, obviously, because this isn't something that we should expect our students walking away from understanding a block programming language and immediately know how to start programming a language. It's just like learning a foreign language. They're learning how to actually talk that language for the very first time. So it's going to be a much slower process. But really you want to figure out in your school what it looks like. Where do you want to be? What's the end goal for this? So if your goal is to have students be graduating with AP computer science classes, then JavaScript is going to be the way to go to start doing that. If you want your students to be creating these really robust interactive web pages, then you can start working with Python, you can start working with HTML, some of the other hands-on programming languages as well. So either are fine. Actually, any of them are fine to start teaching. It depends on what the outcome is.
Well, that's great. I'm just going to kind of scan back up here and see.
Yep.
Somebody said they'd posed a couple of questions. If you post a question and we missed it, if you can just kind of repost that there so Brian can see it, that would be great. How do you introduce IP? How do you introduce IP?
Are they able to explain a little bit more what the acronym?
No. Intellectual property, just the concept of intellectual property.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I would go with it. That was perfect. Intellectual property. Yeah. Start it as young as possible. This is just a part of being a good digital citizen. Actually, it's just part of being a good citizen in general. The word citizenship and digital citizenship go hand in hand. It's really being a good citizen. So we obviously want people to respect the property that others have created. And that starts as young as, when they're first learning how to create a project in school and not stealing it from someone else. So I would always teach, IP at as young of an age as possible because it was important.
Yeah. And I don't know if you noticed, but we have someone who joined today who just graduated from college, is going to start teaching, and she's all excited about all the ideas, and she's going to use them in her first class.
Good. Perfect. Well, these are all activities, like I mentioned, that you can do for no cost. And especially being a first-year teacher, I remember my bank was a little low at the time with all the student loans that I was leaving with. So so these are quite affordable, and these are things that you'll find in your school already in many cases.
So I see another question here. How do you introduce the business canvas? I must say I don't understand that question. Do you, Patricia? No. Can you explain a little bit more what you mean by your question there?
Yeah, and if you don't want to explain it right now, we can take it offline as well, and you can email me too. Innovation to business. So I was starting those types when I was typically in grade 3 is when I started to do some curriculum on designing their dream job and actually coming up with marketing resources, communication resources, ways to build their business. So I was starting that with third graders. They visited, a couple local businesses. We had some people come in that were entrepreneurs in business as well. So we started this quite young, but it was also because that was when they started learning about the job market as well, and what it was to be a citizen in the community and what civics were. So it kind of tied in with that. So really, when you start teaching about civics in your curriculum, depending on what that looks like, is when I would start teaching about innovation to business as well, and how businesses grow based on fresh new ideas.
Yeah, definitely. Alan joined and said that he missed the early part of the presentation. Will it be archived? Yes. And in fact, all of you will receive an email tomorrow with the link to the recording, so you can watch it again. I'm going to have to watch it again to make some of these things. So
yeah, I know. I mean,
it's really good to record how-to webinars.
Yeah, to pull out some of those materials that you need for it as well.
Yeah, right. And the slides will be there too, so that you can, because you've got all your directions on the slides. And yeah, and then you please share it with the other people in your school, so you can.
Yeah, and
as a team.
As you take pictures, also share it with the EdWeb team and with myself. So feel free to
post it in the community
me on Twitter with those pictures, because
absolutely,
we're really curious as to how that works.
Let's see, we got a couple minutes. How do you incorporate computational thinking with Dash and Dot in particular?
So with Dash and Dot, students are able to quickly learn and understand sequencing, how to program the steps that are involved in computer programming language. So we're getting students to problem solve. We're getting them to actually go through and build their first programs. So they're learning about sequencing, they're learning about looping, all of the pieces that are involved with computational thinking, how to design something from beginning to end. These are all different things that we do within our apps and also within all of our lessons as well. So we're teaching students the foundations of coding using these. So you're able to have the apps do it, and also the lesson plans that go along, and some other things that we have that do teach this.
So here's an easy question. Where do you see the future of STEM?
Yeah. So one of the things that I really find interesting about STEM is, how much we're putting a lot of resources into this, because this is the future, especially with computing as well. So this is something that we're going to be seeing in job markets all across the world. And this is really what's going to advance our economy and also the economic growth of the world. So this is a
save the world.
Yeah. So this is something that we're going to see a lot more. It's going to be STEM jobs are the fastest growing jobs in the world. Everything is going to be revolving around some of the pieces that fall in line with STEM, but also something to remind ourselves of is that not every student will take a STEM career. So they're going to be learning skills involved with STEM that will prepare them for other job markets as well. So the future of STEM for me, I see a lot of computing that's going to be coming down the road, and to see that 71% of the job market is going to be around computing, that kind of falls in line with what I'm seeing right now in this industry is the fast growth of virtual reality, augmented reality, hands-on physical computing, Internet of Things, wearable devices. That a lot of it is really exciting to see, and students are going to be preparing themselves for jobs that don't yet exist. So we have to start teaching some of the ways to think along those lines in school. They're not necessarily in STEM programs in school learning how to do it all, but they're learning how to think along those lines. So that's what we're preparing them for.
Right. Problem solving.
Yeah.
So actually, somebody's asked about Dot. They know about Dash, but don't know about Dot.
All right. So so Dash is the robot that has wheels and can move. Dot is handheld. So Dot is designed for physical play and computing. So there's an accelerometer inside. There is a gyroscope inside. So when I shake Dot, Dot is able to do different things. So let's see if I can power on Dot.
Ooh.
Whoa, where am I?
So Dot comes to life. And what I can do is I have a Star Wars one built in here for lightsabers. So
that's great.
So it's using the accelerometer and gyroscope inside to actually figure out, where it is in the program. So I can program this based on movement and motion. So pushing Dot forward can make Dash roll forward, pulling Dot back can make Dash roll back, use it as a remote control car, and then they talk to each other. So there's infrared in Dot's eyes that will talk to Dash, so they know when they're in proximity of each other, so you can set them up for mazes and different activities. So there's a lot of hands-on stuff that you can do with Dot. And on our website, makewonder.com, if you go to the teacher section and click on the blog, we just posted a whole blog article on fun ideas that you can do with Dot. So something to look for.
That's great. Another use for Dash, I think maybe we need Dot also, is that our EdWeb team, Regina on our team, uses Dash to calm down nervous presenters during their checks to get ready for webinars.
Nice. That's perfect.
Let me record that. for you so you can.
Yeah, we want to see that.
I know, it's pretty good. So let's see, Brian, what else do we have to close out here? So
all right, so real
what's
quick
next?
on here, we have our new Facebook community that we've launched for Wonder Workshop. So facebook.com/Teach Wonder. You're going to be able to access a bunch of news information built around Wonder Workshop and Dash and Dot specifically. And my contact information. So if you have any questions, you can feel free to reach out to me directly. Brian@makewonder.com, or on Twitter is a great place to find me, and share those pictures of those STEM activities that you did. I would love to see what you're creating. So you can follow me on @EdTechNerd.
That's cool. That's great. Thank you so much. This was just great. Everybody just loved it. I loved it. And what's your next one, Brian? You sent us the information on it, but we didn't quite have a chance to get it posted yet. So
yeah, so the next one,
what's coming up next?
So the next one that we're going to be doing next month, I'm going to be hosting again. And this is all about ISTE 2017. So for those of you that are going to be attending ISTE, I have been pulling out the best sessions for you to go check out and see.
That's great.
I've been pulling out some of the coolest booths that you're going to be able to experience, and also some of the after events that you're not going to want to miss. So that's going to be the next one coming up in June.
All right. Well, hey, I have to give you some information because EdWeb is doing a Meet the Webinators poster session Monday from 11 to 1. And you have to be there. We're going to show Webinator movies. So we can show some of this. And actually, we should get Dash and Dot there.
Absolutely, yeah. So I'll add that to the presentation as well to promote and share that also, but I'll definitely be in attendance.
Okay, that'll be great. And we're going to have like movies, webinar movies, and popcorn and Dash and Dot.
Perfect. That sounds great.
I know. That'll be fantastic. All right. So everybody, you'll be getting information on where we'll be at ISTE and where Brian will be on the next webinar. We'll get you ready.
Perfect.
All
and
right.
Also, don't forget that for attending, you're going to be receiving your CE certificate as well. And if you're watching this as a recording, you can take the CE quiz that follows. For those of you attending, you don't have to, but you'll be able to take that at edweb.net/code and be able to find the quiz there as well. And don't forget to join our EdWeb community on coding and robotics at edweb.net/code. There you're able to see all of our past recordings, all of our community resources, all of our discussions that we're talking about for you to interact and enjoy. So once again, I just want to say thank you for everyone joining. We had over 200 plus people at some point.
Yeah, we did.
From all across the world.
Over 200.
And, thanks again to EdWeb for such a great opportunity.
Yeah, no, thank you, Brian. We love this. We love how much everybody enjoys it. So have a nice evening, everybody, or whatever time of day it is, wherever you are in the world. We did have a lot of people coming from all over the world, which we love. So thank you for joining us.